Another young black man is dead in the U.S. at the hands of police. Now, Atlanta, Georgia's police chief has resigned as a result, and the mayor has called for the officer involved to be fired. Area residents have converged on the scene of the incident to protest the Friday night shooting death of 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks. Atlanta police say he was asleep in his car, blocking a fast food drive-through lane. He's said to have resisted arrest after failing a sobriety test. Now, security footage then shows Brooks running away with the officer's stun gun and possibly pointing it back at them when police opened fire and killed him with an estimated 3 shots. The incident comes amid widespread protest over police brutality and systematic racism. Around the world, a day of street protests have been keeping the focus on just that, institutional racism. Grief and frustration sparked by the death of George Floyd, a black man who died under the knee of a white police officer in the U.S. city of Minneapolis in May, was met by far-right groups out to protect monuments that they see as part of their national identity.
Police had warned everyone to stay home. The threat of spreading the coronavirus was too great. But in the air at Trafalgar Square, smoke bombs and tear gas, bottles and rocks were the main concern as police tried to keep anti-racism protests separated from counter-protests. Nearly everyone breaching pandemic risk measures, peaceful or not. At one of the main train stations, Black Lives Matter marches were right in the face of police. On this square, police gave ground to right-wing activists at one point, but took it back a little later. On this boulevard, though, they conceded the space. The Prime Minister called it racist thuggery, tweeting that these marches and protests have been subverted by violence and breach current guidelines. Current pandemic guidelines that his Interior Minister said have to be followed.
But I think we should all be very mindful of the fact that these gatherings will spread this disease and put people's health at risk, and that is simply not acceptable, and we want to prevent that.
In Paris, a massive anti-police brutality march set coronavirus distancing concerns aside. But authorities allowed the stationary demonstration until protesters tried to move. That's when tear gas rained down, furthering the distance between those protesting police and the police themselves. One bit of counter-protest here, a far-right sign claiming anti-racism protesters are anti-white. A sort of tug of racial war over the sign ensued. As fists were raised, the sign was eventually torn down.